Now, Elon Musk is a bit of a hot topic right now because he bought Twitter and then used that opportunity to set up a bunch of rakes and then go around stepping on all of them. We're coming off the back of a couple decades of nothing but positive press for Elon. Years of even his critics taking him at his word. So this is a big fucking can of worms, and I'm just sort of sitting on the surface of it here. The can of worms analogy is it's a rabbit warren. A lot of rabbit holes, and I'm just sitting on the surface of it right now. And I don't intend to dig too much. Fucking hell. This is obviously pretty knee-jerk, so I haven't had the time to arrange this video in a cool way. You just have to imagine how I would have structured it so it all dovetails nicely and all that shit. Also, I haven't had time to prepare any jokes, so it's gonna be pretty dry, and then maybe once or twice I'll just say something that's borderline problematic. So Elon Musk's granddad was a weird fucking guy who spent the later part of his life looking for the lost city of the Kalahari. And that's how Elon Musk ended up in South Africa. Before that, he was part of an organization called Technocracy Incorporated. I think after the Great Depression, really, a lot of people disenfranchised with politics and the market were trying to think of new ways of doing society, and there was a movement that was sort of like the engineers should be in charge of the world and everyone else should be peasants, solving the world's problems with technical solutions, and private innovation would surpass both politics and people. And it was those ideas that really inspired the science fiction magazines and the writers of the science fiction magazines. Like every other CEO, Elon Musk says that he loves to read. Unlike every other CEO, he doesn't really have any examples of this. He always picks the same few books that he read as a kid. And Elon Musk's favorite book, it appears, is The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, which is credited with popularizing the phrase, "there's no such thing as a free lunch." And it's a book very inspired by the technocracy movement and very sort of aggressively pushes libertarianism, neoliberal capitalism, and a technological solution to all problems. We're talking space colonies and AI and killing all the poor. And this growing sort of cultural movement of rejecting politics did sort of inform the politics starting in like the 80s, right, with neoliberalism, deregulation, cutting the taxes for the rich, dropping the interest rates, privatization, politicians handing their power away to the economy. Free market capitalism, kept in check by nothing but the invisible hand of the market, which no one ever really talks about this because it's a little bit embarrassing, but the invisible hand of the market, that's not like some rule that you can prove. The invisible hand of the market is God. That's God's hand. But this political project introduces a lot of easy money and encourages short-term profits. It's very volatile, you know, and it really only benefits the people on top. Now, the technology of the internet emerges out of Silicon Valley, and it started as a United States government-funded military production. Obviously had quite widespread adoption. But it's interesting because right away in Silicon Valley you have this little startup story emerging. Just a couple guys in their garage put together a company and it was a huge hit. But right from the very beginning, it was always based on government money. But these early founders have an even more aggressive ideology. A very individualistic, hyper-capitalistic, hippie, techno-neoliberalism. They're sort of free market extremists. They see the internet as a world free of government constraints and rule, because they believed that that would lead to a better society, new technologies, and save us all. And also because they were pedophiles. Now, Elon Musk was born rich, not necessarily evil, just rich. It's quite popular to say that he came from apartheid diamond mine money, which is not the case. He came from Zambian emerald mine money and apartheid construction money. So, well, it's hard to get any factual information about his early life. His dad is a serial liar and a Woody Allen type, and I don't mean he has a quirky oeuvre. His brother is a serial liar and a Woody Allen type, and I don't mean the incestual sexual relationship, and he himself is a serial liar, and he's probably relatively bright. The only test result we've seen from him is a late high school computer aptitude test, and he got an A+. He had a computer in his house since the early 80s because, you know, his family was rich. So you would hope that he would have an edge over his classmates. But anyway, good for him. He dropped out of his first 2 universities and had an incredibly suspect graduation from the third. He did graduate, but 2 years after leaving, and 2 years after claiming that he got into Stanford. We don't have time to get into that. He says that he got into Stanford, he's a trustworthy guy, and I believe him. Also, maybe worth noting, he says he was really struggling financially. He took on a lot of student debt. He's got that Silicon Valley underdog story. He also says he converted a frat house into a nightclub, made money through that, and also sold computers and PC parts out of his room. So he had at least a little bit of float. Leaving university, but before he got a single degree, he made a Yellow Pages website, and he may or may not have stolen this from some guy. It was called Zip2. It was a pretty basic website, but he was able to sell it for a lot of money. And the way that he was able to sell it for a lot of money was he got the computer that they were using as a server, and he put it in a really big case, and then invited potential investors around and showed them the big case and called it a supercomputer. And people were pretty impressed with that. He started as the CEO of the company, but he was pretty bad at that. He called himself a nano manager, and he loved to sort of go in and rewrite people's code, but he sucked at writing code and refused to learn, and everyone would always have to undo what he did, and it was a disaster. Whenever he was asked to estimate how long something would take, he would always say 1 hour. And it was almost never the case that anything that they had to do would take just 1 hour, which meant constantly they would have to work non-stop for like 3 or 4 days to get something done that Elon Musk had promised. And basically, everyone can't stand him. So when they actually got funding, one of the conditions for that funding was that Elon Musk was out as CEO. They brought a new guy in, the new guy did fantastically, he actually made the company profitable. But Elon Musk can't stand someone else being in control, so he coups this new CEO, and the board then just immediately sells the entire company, kicking Elon out once again. But from this he gets a lot of money, and so he's looking for a new investment.
I could go and buy one of the islands in the Bahamas and turn it into my personal fiefdom. Wow.
And Confinity has just made the service PayPal. So he does one of the classic Silicon Valley tricks. He just sort of replicates PayPal with the company dotcom. It's maybe worth noting Elon Musk is obsessed with the brand X. But what it is basically just a clone of PayPal, and dotcom's big plan is just to lose more money than PayPal. He doesn't actually have the cash reserves to do that, but he does it. And PayPal takes the bait. They are freaked. They merge with dotcom. And Elon once again weasels his way into the CEO role. And because he really believes in the X brand, he renames it X PayPal. His goal is like X everything. He also comes out with a service called X Investments. The idea is like everything in the world will eventually fall under Elon Musk's X brand. Focus group testing shows that everyone thinks that X PayPal is some sort of porn thing. It doesn't have any of the connotations that Elon is hoping for, but Elon finds out about this focus group testing and he goes ballistic. He does not like the slightest bit of pushback from anyone, and at the same time as this branding disaster, he just about destroys the company with a mix of mismanagement and ignoring fraud. So the board, once again, pushes Elon Musk out. But in Elon's separation agreement, he works in a little clause. He gets to call himself the founder of PayPal. And of course he retains his stake in the company. So when PayPal gets sold to eBay and it becomes a really big deal, Elon is in the lucky position of having his name attached to a success story and sitting on a pile of money. But this coincides with the dot-com bubble popping. And it looked like the entire economy was going to be fucked by this. So the Federal Reserve took action, cutting interest rates massively so that everyone could borrow cheaply. Let's actually do some half-assed economics real quick. The economic theory is that with all of this free money, it would naturally flood to the most useful places in society. Because of, I don't know, God again? Obviously that didn't happen, but the danger is that low interest rates had always led to massive inflation and instability. But it didn't. Everything was fine. And the tech founders still had a lot of money, so it wasn't too much trouble for tech to get back to where it was. The original founders of Tesla designed the Tesla battery. They make a deal and a plan to put this battery in a Lotus Elise with a plan to start at the high end and then work their way down to a mass market. Elon found SpaceX, which is nothing but failure in the early days, but they developed a company culture of micromanaging Elon. You know, shuffling him around, jingling some keys for him to look at so they can take his money and get on with doing actual work. And a new thing called Wikipedia is emerging. And with it comes sort of a resurgence in the belief of the original internet ideology, the wisdom of the crowd. Just give everyone an equal voice and the truth will rise to the top. It's kind of the dream of self-organizing network. Of course, that's not what Wikipedia is. Wikipedia is an exercise in extreme moderation. Wikipedia is like the one unquestionable good thing to come out of tech. All this supposed progress, and that's the only thing that everyone can point to and go, yeah, that's good. But well, it's not a feat of technology, it's a feat of autism. But in this environment, the growing open source community, the wikis, the blogs, Jack Dorsey makes Twitter. Everyone microblogging together. Again, a self-organizing network. Now, with the low interest rates, they don't need money now. And with the rise of the scam known as programmatic advertising, there is the belief that data is the new oil. So throughout tech, the goal is collect as much data as possible and figure out how to monetize that later. And then the global financial crisis happens. And famously, the response to that was not addressing the underlying issue, but it was massive bailouts, further deregulation, and dropping the interest rates. The goal appears to be to get the banks and the investors back to where they were as quickly as possible, without any regard for the people. But it sort of floods a lot of easy money into the economy. Basically, you drop the interest rates, it completely changes the incentives of the investors. It discourages safe investments and savings, and it encourages risky investments and taking this free money and speculating wildly. And this is where the tech industry really clicks into gear. Just a bunch of companies going, here's our business model, we're gonna lose money forever. Please invest. The social medias take off, YouTube takes off. They expand massively, but they know their hosting costs are always going to eclipse their advertising revenue. And there's sort of a sliding scale from that to MoviePass to Theranos. This new economy, you don't need to have a business model that makes sense. You can coast on losing money and inflating your stock. And this coincides with Elon weaseling his way into being the CEO of Tesla. He started by investing a couple years into the company's life. He takes over as chairman of the board and eventually becomes the fourth CEO of Tesla. He just needs to deliver the Roadster orders, which does take him quite a while to do. They had also started developing the Model S, so he needs to get that done, and that also takes him a while to do. And naturally, his next order of business after that is to make a Model X. And he claims the founder title of Tesla for himself in a court of law, so he is legally a founder of Tesla, which is pretty cool. People have questioned him on this recently, and he's produced 2 pieces of evidence to support this. He won an award for the design of the Roadster, and he registered the domain name Tesla.com. Pretty impressive stuff. I think that's exactly what someone who founded Tesla would say. Now, we don't have time to get into Tesla, but a lot of lying, a lot of borrowed money, a lot of government money, constantly on the brink of ruin, over-promising and under-delivering, increasing their prices by removing features and selling them as microtransactions. The cars themselves are often fucked. The process to make them is insanely fucked. phantom braking, barrier lust, wompy wheels, unintended acceleration, firing, doxing, and harassing anyone who speaks out. But every week, they publish a fake announcement about something that they will never be able to achieve. It's a powerful company and brand built around hyping up Elon and pumping the stock. But we don't have time to get into Tesla. The interesting thing is Elon is increasingly buying his own bullshit. Buying his own bullshit and forgetting the actual cause of his few successes. But crucially, director Jon Favreau buys into the myth of Elon. So he becomes an icon. Now, coming out of the global financial crisis, we also have the rise in social media. For normal people in the normal world, the global financial crisis has meant a huge shift in how work is done. A real rise in the gig economy, precariat work. Work is increasingly done by individuals for very little return, short-term profits in a volatile economy. And increasingly, people are working using their own consumer goods to make money on the side. Like Uber drivers owning their own car and driving for Uber, making less money than taxi drivers and undercutting the taxi industry. Or me, right now. I'm using all of my own gear, I'm not really making any return from it, and I'm undercutting normal media. You don't really make money, you undercut the people who were making money, all in service of the billionaires. And Tesla really thrives in this media environment. They constantly feed exciting press releases to traditional journalists while paying off this rising group of citizen bloggers to give them good press and exploiting the network effects of that to build a really strong social media base. But on the flip side of that, this rise in citizen journalism means that there are people who are actually looking into Tesla themselves. People who do happen to dig into Tesla can easily find out about all this horrible shit that they're doing. But it never really reaches the mainstream because Tesla can just astroturf over it, cover it up with positive press, and dox and harass and censor. But it allows Elon to further buy in to his own myth. He's earned his rightful place at the top of the power hierarchy. He really believes, potentially literally because of his sort of misunderstanding of AI, that he is the god of this simulation and he can bend it to his will. And his base also believes that he is divine. People are constantly asking him to invent time travel or a beautiful robot or a monkey that dies of having a Fitbit shoved into its brain. They want him to invent things, they love his image, they want a taste of it. They'll defend him from criticism, buy products that don't exist, and whenever Tesla needs a bit more cash, buy microtransactions on those products that don't yet exist. And by some strange coincidence, these people are the perfect marks for scam.
Hopefully people will buy into it and start to believe. And
he starts to limit his social circle. He becomes increasingly thin-skinned and paranoid. He will fire anyone who disagrees with him. Because while he believes that he is divine, and his base believes that he is divine, he has blinded himself to the fact that most people actually just think he kind of sucks. Really. He is just a nasty, off-putting guy. And I think a lot of his career can be seen as an antisocial attempt to get back at people for not liking him. He will fire anyone for any reason. He tried to automate all of the people out of his factories. He proposed the Hyperloop to block high-speed rail development. He's increasingly sycophantic and wrong about AI and self-driving and Mars and implants. And that, coupled with the union busting and harassing employees and selling death traps, it's not deliberate, but it all betrays a deep hatred of people. He believes that he is excellent in every area, and it's not enough for him to get someone to run his social media. He wants to be personally loved by everyone. Elon loved Reddit and The Onion, and he desperately tries to befriend comedy writers. I don't think that's really ever worked out for him. I think he does stay in touch with Justin Roiland, so that's sort of his level. He tries to buy The Onion, and so The Onion makes fun of him. So instead, he hires out some Onion staff and creates the website Thud, which flops hard, and after that he stops enjoying the onion and potentially invests in the Babylon Bee. He desperately wants to be the coolest poster, but he fucking sucks at posting. He's really bad at it. Mostly he just sort of steals memes from 9gag, and he fucking sucks at that as well. Even when he makes a post that is funny on accident. It's always conceptually funny on accident, but his delivery even then is shit. And his myth is starting to crack. He becomes a joke. To some, but still a hero to many. Anyway, Web3 becomes a thing with the metaverse and AI, the blockchain, crypto and Bitcoin and monkeys, an alternative, unregulated financial market, perfect for pumping and dumping and illegal purchases. And it's not, you know, it is a real development. It's not just for tech bros to gamble with. It's used as actual currency by many pedophiles. Have you noticed whenever there's a new technology that's only real use case is for pedophiles, investors will love to create a speculative bubble around it? The reason for that is sheer coincidence. There's sort of an acceleration in the tech hype, but questions about Web 2 remain unanswered. The data, the ads, the AI, it actually doesn't seem to work. And the tech companies are still not profitable. Data wasn't the new oil. In fact, oil is still oil. The markets drift away from reality, securities fraud cases mount up, friends of Elon are in trouble with regulators, and he is too. He gets in trouble with the SEC for inflating the Tesla stock price by lying.
Today, the SEC filed securities fraud charges against Elon Musk.
And I think this is where he starts going like, cancel culture much?
So, hello, First Amendment. Like, freedom of speech is fundamental.
Which that's not, that's just doing something illegal. And he was barely punished for it. I don't really want to get into American culture war stuff, but Americans are so proud of their free speech. But like, here in New Zealand, no constitutional free speech. I can go out in public, call a trooper and not even get shot to death.
But how do they know if it's going to move the market if they're not reading all of them?
So I guess we might make some mistakes. Who knows?
Are you serious?
Nobody's perfect.
Look at you.
No, I want to be clear. I do not respect the SEC. I do not respect them.
And like, he came out as a Republican to cover up his sex offense. These are his actual sincere beliefs, but it's only useful now for him to show them. Elon is all about optics. Nothing he's ever done has ever been for anyone else. He only ever acts for his own benefit. And now Elon Musk complaining about being silenced is everywhere. It's inescapable. Social media is the most extreme free speech, free market environment we've ever had. Most of this shit you would not get away with in a town square. The wisdom of the crowd didn't work. The supposed absence of hierarchies creates new, more extreme hierarchies. It turns out it's much easier to tell a lie than verify one. It becomes quantity over quality and information over ideas. And that doesn't lead to mass cooperation. It's a breeding ground for echo chambers, groupthink, and mob mentality. It's actually obviously heightened the sense of disconnection and loneliness in society. And I think the tech companies do have too much consolidated power over all media, that their moderation decisions actually do have an outsized effect. And that is why I support their wholesale destruction. That's never the discussion that anyone's having about this, by the way. It's always kept in like free speech territory, meaningless culture war territory. It's never like, well, let's actually change how this works. Obviously, if you start to try and address the issues, you're inevitably walking into a critique of the current economic system, and that wouldn't benefit them at all. Anyway, Twitter faces the need for increased moderation. It's not incredible, but I don't really give a shit. Twitter's moderation was incredibly bureaucratic. They have clear rules, they enforce them. They're easy enough to skirt, you know, but you just have to accept that if you use a slur and you do get reported for it, and someone getting paid less than a livable wage determines that it is against Twitter's policy, you will get a 12-hour timeout, which is not, I honestly, who gives a fuck? And the thinking is, for most people that does stop repeat offences. Of course, if your whole deal is doing hate speech, I can imagine your behaviour might not change that much. And many use this to their advantage. Babylon Bee, Jordan Peterson, Kanye West all voluntarily put themselves into Twitter exile after receiving a temporary lockout, which gets them a edgy outsider status and hiding the fact that they just suck-ups. And now Elon wants to buy Twitter. So why? Well, he does seem to genuinely fall for the voluntary exile of these accounts. The Babylon Bee putting themselves in exile does seem to be the impetus, and he does genuinely believe in his idea of free speech. He should be allowed to do whatever he wants, like, for example, securities fraud, and no one should be allowed to say anything mean to him about that. His text messages came out during this, and it's revealed that his social circle is really just the tech investors, right-wing influencers, and Tesla fans. Like, actually fans. And they're all invested in pushing him into this deal. Obviously, no one wants to buy Twitter right now. It'd be a stupid move, but they would like to see Twitter bought. And more broadly, a lot of the tech founders have recently done this right-wing pivot. They haven't changed their beliefs at all. They've just, started openly hating trans people or whatever. I'd like to propose a theory for this. So we've had 2 decades of bottomed out interest rates, which in theory should have caused massive inflation, but it didn't. It's changed the world. Social media and gig work and streaming and all of society and culture and tech is all built off of this. The capitalists have had 2 decades to borrow freely, and they didn't actually solve the climate crisis or the pandemic or cancer or do anything cool or worthwhile. They've just undermined every industry that did make money and funded fraud and dead companies and bought monkey JPEGs. But now, inflation is here. So the interest rates are being raised, which should curb inflation, with the downside being it kind of fucks over anyone who isn't rich. But the tech industry is in a unique situation where their companies don't have money. So they don't want the interest rates to go up. These companies are filled with debt, generally. So this would kind of fuck them. They're also opposed to any other solutions to inflation. So in terms of economic policy, they're kind of going, fuck everyone in the world, just give the money to us. And that's not an overly popular position. Without free money to throw around, all of these companies that are an insane scam-adjacent money-losing exercise are in trouble. So in the fake companies of Silicon Valley, there are a lot of layoffs, budget cuts, tanking stock prices. So right now, they all hold a very extreme technocratic position. Most of the tech companies now require political influence over people who would take action to keep them afloat. So where maybe before it was smart for them to mask their political beliefs to present a palatable brand for everyone, now they maybe see it as like mask off or ruin. And to sell you on supporting this idea, they just sort of engage in this culture war. Elon doesn't have the money to promise something cool like going to Mars anymore, so he's just going to cry about Twitter moderation. I maybe should briefly mention there is a theory that it was a pump and dump gone wrong. I don't overly buy into that, but he has been known to historically, allegedly use Twitter to pump investments that he held and then allegedly dump those investments. And of course, his replies, specifically, are filled with crypto scams, because every Elon Musk fan is a fucking mark. But he doesn't realize this, and he believes that Twitter is entirely filled of these crypto scams. I think he does genuinely overvalue Twitter. He doesn't have the perspective to, he didn't do a Google search to find out that Twitter is not the biggest social media platform. And he just wants to remake Twitter how he wants it. He wants to ban people he doesn't like. And more than anything, he wants to be a cool poster. If only he could command the people's respect. So mostly he's addicted to Twitter, and it was a stupid mistake. Now, Twitter, as you probably realize, was in bad shape. Still not profitable, so as soon as Elon Musk offered to buy it for a ridiculously high price, they were fucking hustling to cash out. Conversely, no one else wanted this deal to happen. Not even Elon Musk wanted the deal to happen. But of course, it has happened, and now, more than ever, Twitter needs to become profitable. They can no longer trade on speculation. And to buy Twitter, Elon Musk put Twitter massively into debt. And in terms of making Twitter profitable, I think you do need to pivot away from advertising as the main source of revenue, because there's not that much money there. Even before this Elon Musk stuff, Twitter's advertising growth had been declining, and as soon as he offered to buy it, you had advertisers pulling out because they weren't sure about the state of it, maybe unhappy about the direction he might take it in. And at the same time, to try and weasel his way out of the deal, he was attacking Twitter for being comprised entirely of bot traffic. So you had advertisers who were on his side pulling out of advertising. So Twitter typically sells their advertising in bulk all at once, and that was happening at the same time this deal was being figured out, so they didn't really sell much of anything. No one wanted to buy advertising when they didn't know what was going to happen. I do think Twitter's existing model had its problems. Verification had problems, moderation had problems, and in big tech there are a lot of highly paid jobs at these companies. There's a lot of bloat in these companies because they've just come off this wave of tech hype. And he sets about implementing those things. Implementing things that smart money people had suggested to him, like cutting the staff, cutting the server costs, offering a better subscription. And that's sort of sensible stuff. Everyone agrees on that stuff, that people advising Elon told them to do all that stuff. But you have to be careful that you don't alienate the advertisers, you don't alienate the users, and you don't increase the costs. And he has, of course, done all of those things. In typical Elon Musk fashion, he made drastic changes that were vaguely aimed in the right direction, and he fucked it all up. And now Twitter is in even worse shape. So Elon Musk's goals, quite specifically, are more income, less costs, and more culture war. I don't need to talk about current developments, I don't think. You know, his product rollouts are always disastrous. He will announce a new thing every few days, and most of it goes nowhere. Things get implemented badly, they fail, he announces some more, he adds some microtransactions, whatever the fuck, right? And he's clearly been doing a lot of personally outright banning people, not timing people out, not using the moderation rules or anything, just banning people. He's just like a bad forum. You shouldn't be moderating during a narcissistic collapse. But he is consistent. He wants total control for himself, and he's ready to fuck anyone else over. He is a free speech absolutist. He gets free speech, absolutely.
There seemed to be a little bit of anger from some people in the room who felt that we'd kind of done a bait and switch. And I mean, that's sort of a little bit true that there was a bit of a bait and switch. I mean, that's kind of what happened.
And his big trick that he has up his sleeve, his big plan to make Twitter profitable, is to turn it into an everything app called x.com. But ultimately, not a lot changes. He doesn't have the capacity to change much very quickly here. Twitter is like in life support mode right now. He has made some innovative financial decisions, some unconventional savings methods, like just not paying people, just not paying the rent, firing all the janitors. So I expect Twitter will see more features, worse service, more regulatory trouble, microtransactions. But we've seen him do exactly this over and over again. You enter a space, you talk a lot of shit, you don't do a whole lot, get money from the sycophants who love your image, fuck over all your employees, you constantly make drastic decisions, announce products and features, never deliver, and just find some weird financial hack that will get you out of it. We've actually never seen Elon run a company that's made money by selling its product. Tesla has kind of blown their early lead. They don't dominate the electric vehicle market anymore. They don't have the volume. Their AI dreams aren't real. Their demand is drying up. They are kind of in the best shape they've ever been, but more than ever, they don't have a future ahead of them. The resale value of Teslas used to be fixed in a dodgy way, and that's fallen apart now. It looks like SpaceX Starship program isn't working out, and they just failed to get a round of investment. And Twitter itself has seen basically all of their advertisers drop out, and kind of no one sign up for Twitter Blue. And it sounds disastrous, but this is actually incredibly familiar territory for Elon. He has basically been in this position since 2006. It would be sick if this fucked him. But the thing about Elon is he has always weaseled his way out. But I don't think Twitter is in particularly recoverable shape now. I think it's in steady decline until it dies. It's sort of exhibiting all of the features of a social media in decline. It's like he's looked at how social media has failed in the past and used that as a checklist. Probably it tips over at some point into being so annoying that people give up on it. I think he does still genuinely want Twitter, and he does genuinely believe that the people, the true believers, want him. Elon pitches himself as an underdog because that is the story that we love to hear, but it's not true. Elon's actual story of being a rich kid who exploited people all the way to the top is the real truth. He doesn't believe the rules apply to him, and he's right. He's a liar, a cheat, and a thief in a society that rewards that behavior as long as you have enough money. He's built a career out of failing upwards, and he sees himself as rightfully on top. So by definition, nothing that he does could ever be wrong. He's doing what the economy incentivizes, and he is the best at it. I want to be clear though, there's no plan here. It's not some elaborate genius trick. Just no one is huffing Elon Musk's farts more than Elon. Sure, he's a scummy moron who most people dislike, backs his way into everything, weasels his way out of everything, but it's exactly what's rewarded in today's society. But that's it. Sorry. It's a bit of a weird one. Seems like people don't know this stuff, so I just thought I'd get this out there. But I think I will get into this and more properly next year. For those of you who have been asking if I'm going to do another elaborate series on tech stuff, yeah, I am. We'll probably talk about this, so I'll probably cover some of this stuff again when either the economy tanks and everyone is worse off, or Elon Musk somehow weasels his way out of this situation and everyone is worse off. Cool. I'm sort of abandoning the fortnightly schedule for the main channel now, but I'm doing weekly stuff on the website. It shouldn't affect you too much. I'll still try and put out plenty of good stuff on the main channel, but if you want regular content, check out the website.